The year was 1968. My family was moving again. I was 16. This was the 20th time that we were moving. We were moving from Monterey, California to Fort Benning, Georgia. Yes, my dad was in the military, and for us, moving every year was the typical thing to do. What wasn't typical was the culture shock that I saw right away when we moved from California to Georgia. I was wearing colorful ponchos and sandals, and other girls at the school were wearing these button-down shirtwaist dresses with either penny loafers or saddle Oxford shoes. Now, I don't know if you know what saddle Oxford shoes are, but they're those white shoes and they have like the black painted part on the side. Well, when I was in 5th grade, I had to wear saddle Oxford shoes with these metal plates in them to correct my gait, how I walked and turned my feet in. And I remember those being torture. So when I saw girls like choosing to wear those shoes, I was like shocked. But that was just the beginning of my shock when I moved from California to Georgia in 1968. So we are going to be talking about some things today that I know make some of us uncomfortable. And I get uncomfortable because I'm like, am I going to say the right thing? And I just have to embrace that I am learning. And I am not your perfect example of that human being that has arrived on some, level. I am like you. I care about children with disabilities. But that is rooted in my beliefs in the foundation of we first are human, right? I mean, we can't be asking others to support our children when we're not supporting others that have their lives marginalized every day. So if you're new to the show, I am Charmaine Tanner. I am a white, privileged, middle-class woman who has experienced some things that are probably different than you, just like you've experienced things that are different from my life experiences. But let me share a little bit more about that shock of moving from California to Georgia. So not only did I dress different than others, but I was like shocked in high school when we would start the day with an announcement, and it was a prayer in high school. And I was like, what? You can't have prayer in school. That's out. You can't do that. That's against the law. Well, it wasn't just prayer in our high school. It was also Dixie being played at high school football games instead of the national anthem. It was like, what? It was going into Columbus, Georgia, and seeing colored water fountains. And I was like, I've seen this on TV. It's like, how can this be? It's 1968. How can that be? Colored entrances. When you went into many restaurants in Columbus, Georgia in 1968, you would see in fine print at the bottom of the menu, we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. And I was like, what? And I was asking my mom and dad, it's like, why do they put this on here? Well, guess what? If a Black family came in that restaurant to eat, just because of the color of their skin, they could be turned away. They could be, no, I'm sorry. We refuse the right to serve anyone. And it was like, what? I remember my first job besides babysitting in Georgia was to work at a Hardee's hamburger place. I don't know if you guys know Hardee's. They still exist. And my white boss at Hardee's Hamburgers was always talking about being such a good Christian and going to their Baptist church on Sunday and praising the Lord. And although he didn't say that N word that we're familiar with, he did say another N word. He would say nigra. And it was like, what? And that, I came to find out, was the more polite way of referring to Black people, not using that N word that we know not to use, but nigra. Like, that made a difference. In 1968 in Columbus, Georgia, we had school choice. And every spring, parents got sent home paperwork. What school do you want your child to go to next year? Well, most of the Black families picked the Black schools for their children to go to. Most of the white families chose white schools for their children to go to. So all of this was happening, and it was just like, I don't get this. I don't understand. My parents hired a Black maid to clean our house. And I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. So when we look at this page called Visions and Voices Together, yes, you're going to get lots of information about being an advocate for your child with disabilities or your disabled child. But the underlying basic foundation is built on human rights, on civil rights, on social justice. And there are times when I am going to put articles up, when I am going to make statements about Black Lives Matter. And that does not mean I'm discounting anyone else in the world. What it means is on this day, in this time period, in 2020, it doesn't seem like we've moved far away from my high school days in Columbus, Georgia of 1968. So there's been some people that have been concerned, upset, which is okay, that I'm not staying in this lane of, I thought this page was about special education. I thought this page was about, advocacy for kids with disabilities. Why are you taking this political stand? And I don't see it as a political stand. I see it as a human rights, a civil rights, a social justice stand. So yes, most of our shows are going to be about IEPs, what your rights are, about inclusion, right? And that doesn't mean just for kids with disabilities. We have to go beyond special education. There are so many children sitting on the sidelines in our classrooms. That is not okay. We have to make changes. And We have to listen to each other. So we have some people with us live, more people watching the replay. I would love to read some of your comments because one of the things I want to do is listen better. So Lissa is here. Hey, Lissa. Karen. She says, hi, Charmaine. I've been thinking about this stuff a lot lately. And about the differences between not being racist and being anti-racist. I've been thinking in terms of changes for children with disabilities as well. Can you imagine if every parent cared as much about my child being included with theirs as much as I do? We need to make more effort across the board to represent people we care about in general instead of just the people in our immediate circle. Thank you, Karen. You know, that is so true. It's like we are expecting others to support us in our efforts to include kids with disabilities. What are we doing to support others in the inclusion of Black children, in the inclusion of students that speak a second language, in terms of Hispanic, Latino, in terms of gay, in terms of transgender? Yes, those kids are physically in our classrooms, but when we look at inclusion, when we look at equity, that's not happening. And I've always encouraged parents not to start, this separate special ed PTA or PTO, that instead we need to be working with all the parents in the school about all the issues. When we go to school board meetings and we only talk about inclusion for kids with disabilities, we are seen as this special interest group and we are easily dismissed. I have said many times we need to widen our circle of allies. This is not just about special education. We have to go beyond special education. So I would love to hear more of what you're thinking, what your comments are. Karen says, I support your responsibility to advocate for anybody who experiences discrimination and oppression. Thank you, Karen. I want to hear what the rest of you are thinking. And even if it's, in opposition to what I'm thinking, I have been doing things lately and it's like almost embarrassing. It's like, so I am 67 years old and I don't know much about history in our country. It's like, why don't I know these things? When I saw that discrimination and that prejudice and that racism in Columbus, Georgia, why didn't I then look into more of the history where all of this came from? I don't know. I guess it was because I was at those white protests against the Vietnam War. But back in 1968 in Columbus, Georgia, you could drive on this one road. And I remember it now, driving this way and looking at the left. And there was this big open field. And behind it, I don't know if it was a large house or a building. But beside the road, there was this huge sign. I don't know how big, but huge. A sign painted in white. And within black letters, it said KKK meets Thursdays at 7 p.m. It was like, what? The KKK still exists in 1968? And guess what? It's 2020, and white supremacy groups still exist in our country. And I don't understand it. So, one of the things that I've been doing is there's a wonderful, I wanted to share this Facebook group that just started a few weeks ago, and it's called White People Doing Something. And I encourage you to join that Facebook group. It's a couple of young women, and they just have thought-provoking things to share. They do things like every Tuesday is listening day. So if you're not a person of color, they encourage you to read the Facebook posts, but only post a heart to show that you're listening. The other days, there's usually some kind of action that you can take for the day. You'll read hundreds of comments from people. So I would encourage you to go to that Facebook group. The other thing that just came in yesterday was this book that I ordered, Teaching for Black Lives. And it's, meant for teachers, as a lot of the resources are that I share on here. And I tell parents it's important to know what teachers are learning so you can also learn beside them. So I just started the intro, but I'm looking forward to that. If you can go back and see the last 60 minutes of, not 60 minutes, Sunday morning, I think it was, either Sunday morning or 60 minutes on Sunday, where they talked about the Tulsa riots, where they talked about American planes. I think they said they were these turpentine bombs that they were flying over the Black neighborhood and dropping these turpentine bombs that would explode and cause fires, and eventually the whole section, right, the Black section, was burned to the ground. I didn't know about that story until last Sunday. I didn't know until last Sunday that we had Black internment camps there. I mean, I've heard about Japanese internment camps that we had in our country, that we had in Canada. I've been to one to view it, to learn. I've never heard about a Black internment camp. So we have much to learn from each other. I don't have all the answers. I know I have some things that I need to come to terms with. And I'm hoping through our Facebook group here that we can share experiences, that we can share opinions, that we can be respectful, that we can learn from others, because this is how we're going to make change. And not just change for your child, not just change for my son, Dylan, But we're going to make change for all the marginalized children in every classroom across this country. That is the big picture. And I can get caught up in the details of what IEPs should say and, what to do with your draft IEP. But that's a very, very narrow part of the change that we have to make. So please, I would love for you to share what you're thinking. Yeah. It is. It's a lot of emotions. 1968 to 2020. How much have we changed? And Lissa's saying that she had never heard of those things either. So, as we are starting our summer, as we are learning more from each other, I hope that we can do this together, that we can learn together, we can listen to each other, we can have more uncomfortable sometimes conversations with our family members. And I want you to know that this page, Visions and Voices Together, goes beyond special education. So thank you for being part of this community. I appreciate you. I love that there are people out there that care, that want to see these positive changes. And we will keep on keeping on. So until next Thursday, I'm Charmaine Tanner. May justice be served.